Good evening. Welcome to the June 23rd workshop for the town of Hillsborough. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kathleen. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Matt. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, on to number 4, in-depth discussion and topics. First on the list is Unified Development Ordinance Rewrite Project Update from Project Consultants. And I believe Tom King, our planner, will introduce.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm going to introduce Jay McLeod and Eric Anderson from Inspire Placemaking to give a short presentation on kind of introduce the UDO rewrite project. We did have our first kind of public engagement meeting this afternoon from 5:30 to 6:30. So we had maybe 10 people total around that show up. So I will turn it over to Jay and Aaron to kind of walk you through the presentation that was given.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Good evening. Yeah, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here and to be working with you all and your staff to do this ordinance rewrite. And it's also great to be here tonight in order to meet y'all and kind of beginning of the process, be able to introduce the project and make sure that you all are as aware as you should be about everything that's going on and answer any questions that you may have so that you can, be aware of your constituents as well. So this is just a brief introduction to kind of the process and where we are and where we're headed so that we're all on board. I was going to start by just briefly introducing our firm and our experience, talk a little bit about the project and the steps of involvement and then where we're headed. So we work for a firm called Inspire Placemaking Collective, which works for local governments and focuses on comprehensive plan updates and ordinance rewrites. And Unified Development Ordinances being part of that. Our company is actually headquartered in Orlando, but we have a strong presence here in Durham. So I'm the project manager on this. I've been in North Carolina for over a decade working in local government. So I bring that experience doing local government current planning and then also working with communities across the state in ordinance updates and comprehensive plan updates. So the long range planning. I'm backed up by Sarah Sinatra and David Henning, who are our senior reviewer and principal in charge. They have experience as well in planning in multiple states, including North Carolina prominently. And then we're also backed up by other planners throughout our offices on the East Coast here, who have various specialties as well, including things like graphic design, urban design, historic preservation. We have a member of our team, Pat Chajewski, who is an acting historic preservation officer for several communities in Florida. We also have folks involved in public engagement and then GIS and graphics. So we're excited to bring all that here to work with y'all's team and people. This is kind of just an example of some of the work we've done for ordinances in other communities. 2 of these are outside of the state, but also you could add Greenville, North Carolina, and High Point to the list. Kenley as well. And these are examples of different types of development regulation that have been used in these communities to meet their needs, whether that is transect-based zoning or form-based codes, or just kind of the more typical land use Euclidean kind of zoning regulation. But the point being here is that it's our pleasure to bring our expertise and especially in graphics and graphic communication, as well as matching that up with land development regulations that are easily administered and sensible to create and hopefully enhance the development review process here in the town of Hillsborough. So you all probably know this, but for people that maybe don't, the town's Unified Development Ordinance regulates land use and development within the town subdivision. And is our goal to bring this ordinance more in alignment with your recently adopted comprehensive sustainability plan and the goals and vision that are within that plan. We also want to make it a user-friendly document, more user-friendly, internally consistent. We want to remove inconsistencies and any ordinance as it is used and gets patched and band-aided in response to new conditions kind of accumulates baggage, and it's our job to come here, find that, clean it out, make sure it aligns with the town's goals, and make sure that it's as friendly and easily administered as possible. That'll also involve probably an update to the zoning map to maybe make things more simple or change standards and make sure that the geographies align with the standards themselves. And this will all be communicated along the process to you all and to the planning board and to the public to make sure they have an opportunity to participate, be aware of the process and understand it as well. So Unified Development Ordinance consists, generally speaking, of the regulation of how land is used, how land is subdivided, and the development standards that go along with it, and other things like site elements like signage, parking, streets and sidewalks, and other design features. In Hillsborough specifically, we're going to be examining these different features and making sure that they align with the sustainability plan. I keep referencing the comprehensive sustainability plan because there was a lot of public input in that and a lot of direction about what the future should look like. And we're not by any means starting from scratch. We're taking that and running with it and trying to implement it and bring it forward into how land is developed. The project schedule stretches across this year and next. We kind of kicked off in April with logistical administrative discussions with staff, getting things lined up, sharing information. We're still in the information gathering phase, which was looked as task 2 up there. So we're still combing through the comprehensive sustainability plan to find opportunities to modify the ordinances to align with that. We've also spoken with members of the town staff, as well as a few members of the development community to get their perspectives. And all that is going to be brought forward in a document at the end, kind of middle end of task 2, which will be available to the public to kind of talk about where we're headed next and outline those proposed changes so that nobody is surprised when those changes eventually come to pass and that they've had an opportunity to review and participate and comment on that throughout as we move along the process. That's our goal, to be as transparent as possible to make sure that there are no surprises at the end and that everyone understands the changes are being made and final.
So I'm going to talk about kind of the opportunities for community engagement we have throughout the process. And so like Jay said, we're still in the information gathering phase of the project. And to that end, we've really focused on talking to users of the code since it is such a technical document. So we've met with a technical advisory committee, which is a group of town staff who interact regularly with the UDO. So that includes members of the planning staff, engineering, stormwater. And we've met with them once so far, and we plan to continue meeting with them throughout the length of the project. And like Jay said, we've also met with members of the development community. We've held small in-depth group interviews with those folks to kind of get their experience as people outside of the town working with the Hillsborough UDO. And then we've also held a listening session with planning staff who actually administer the UDO. And we'll take that feedback to streamline any procedures or processes. And like Jay mentioned, we're still synthesizing and processing all of this that we've learned, and we're going to roll that up into the UDO framework document that he was mentioning. And of course, we're going to take this process out to the public. So we had our first public open house just before this meeting. It was a drop-in style meeting with boards and the same presentation, just really to inform the public of the project. In a few months, we're going to have another public open house once we've kind of done some more of the code writing and analysis to present an actual product to the public to receive feedback on that. We also plan to have informational booths at various community events like the farmers market or any community festivals to really get the word out about the project and then to drive people to other public engagement events. And then, of course, at the end of the process, we're gonna present the final UDO to you all and the planning board. And then that will be available for public comment as well. And then this is a link to the website for the project update. This website will have all of our engagement dates. We'll update it as we finalize any dates. And we'll also update this website with project documents and drafts of the code and things like that. And I'm gonna pass it back to Jay.
Thanks. So I say we had about probably 10 folks show up at the public meeting right before this. I won't lie, Unified Development Ordinances are technical regulatory documents. Not many people are super excited about reading about that. But those that are, we want them to be aware of the process and as involved as they want to be throughout it. And so while we were kind of having the public meeting here, our colleague Sarah took some of those flyers up and down Main Street to hand those out and hopefully have some business owners put them in their windows. So maybe we get a little bit more traffic and spread a little bit more awareness. But you know, we're excited. Like I said, we're not throwing away any of the input that was gathered in the comprehensive sustainability plan. We're going to bring that forward.
Can we also have flyers for businesses of West Hillsborough?
Absolutely. Actually, one of our planners is used to live over there, so she's very excited to be working here as well.
Excellent.
Yeah. So then the next kind of stop as we synthesize this information and bring it forward is the UDO framework document, and that's going to be posted and advertised. And then there will be a public meeting to discuss that with members of the public that attend and or review at their leisure and provide comments. We'll bring those revisions forward. And ultimately, then we'll move into the drafting of the ordinance, and that'll be a process that repeats several times and is reviewed with the technical staff before it becomes that strike-through underline document that then moves forward to kind of the more outward, even more outward facing. So we kind of start as a working group and then move outward from there and get information from there from the public and then bring it back to you all for a legislative adoption process. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here and being engaged, and I think you're off to a great start. I'll just go around the table to see if any board members have questions. Evelyn, do you have any questions for the consultants? Okay, thank you.
What projects have you worked on? You say out in Florida, what have you worked on in Florida? And I saw Greenville. I just got back from the National Association of Regional Councils where we saw a variety of prize winning projects. I just checked through. I know that unfortunately it couldn't tell if you were involved with any of those or not, because it's the regional councils are cited, but none of the, if there were any consultants who they were.
Gotcha.
So I was wondering if what you were involved with, then maybe I could cross-reference.
I'm actually originally from Florida, so I can talk about it for a long time.
Oh, good.
But, and I used to work at a couple of regional councils down there. So they're kind of like the equivalent of our COGS. here,
Exactly.
If you're right. So, loved working with the regional council down there. But, right now our company is working on ordinance updates in DeLand, Pensacola. So those are pretty big cities. They've done work in Gainesville, Florida, which was a form-based code. They have also worked in, I believe, Green Cove Springs had an ordinance update. Our focus is really the North Carolina and surrounding states.
Okay.
Previously, I've done ordinance updates for Franklin County, Garner, City of Wilson, or County of Wilson. So I did a little bit of work in Goldsboro. So we kind of bring a body of work. And David, like I mentioned earlier, has worked in other jurisdictions around here. Sarah has worked in Florida, but also done ordinance updates here. It's kind of an interesting situation because the company itself was the planning arm and landscape architecture arm of a larger construction and design services engine company,
And which one was that?
S&ME.
Okay,
So they're around here, they're regional.
I'm familiar with that from a past long time.
Okay. So they were that planning group for them, doing the local government support work primarily. The opportunity came to spin off that group of just planners and landscape architects. And so they did. And so they took that body of work and they took that service line, which is supporting local governments. And we've pursued that mission as opposed to private sector development. So here in North Carolina, we don't do any support for, our group doesn't do any support for local developers or private sector projects. We have zero conflict of interest in any respect like that. But we also have we have worked in local government, so we've been on that side, and some of us have worked in the private sector in support of others before, but not anymore.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Kathleen. I've had a chance to speak with them before, so I don't have any other questions. We're glad you're here. Thank you for that. Yeah, no questions from me? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Appreciate it. Look forward to engaging with you more in the future. Okay, next up, discussion of planning for 2026 America 250th event. Matt, you've heard the word.
Good evening, everyone. So this is just an opportunity to try to distill a little more feedback from y'all before we head into the summer and start planning in earnest for our work for the next year. So we got some guidance from you all back a few months ago when Shannon was here talking about in concept of America 250. You all approved funding in the budget last week for town participation in America 250. And so this is really an opportunity to try to narrow down our focus. So I put a couple of questions in the agenda abstract that I'd like to get some feedback on. Probably the most important thing right now is the board's vision of, are we talking about a daytime event, a nighttime event? Is the town hosting something, or is the town going to take a role of supporting some other organization yet to be identified? And then what are the roles of the town board, the TDA, and the tourism board? How do you all envision that? The important thing is if we decide to focus on a nighttime event, and we have talked about interest in a drone show, we need to know that soon so that we can get on somebody's calendar and get booked. And so that's probably the first question is, where do you all see this type of event happening next year? Daytime, nighttime, something different? And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll open it up to questions. Okay,
Thank you.
discussion.
I have a suggestion, and that is you're asking 3 different questions. Let's take them one at a time and go around the room, or just everybody. I guess, yeah. So daytime or nighttime? I think if I recall correctly, we talked about the daytime probably being too hot in July, so there seemed to be a preference for evening, and they're doing 2 kinds of events, a daytime event, maybe like a parade, and a nighttime event, maybe was gonna be too much in terms of effort for the town staff. So I think that's where we left off. Does anybody have feelings one way or the other? Is that?
I'm thinking, I mean, I would think we would have a parade, but the town would do it. That would be one of the groups around town would do it.
Stepping up to do that?
Well, I won't go there.
I know, it's a little disappointing.
Yeah, 250, and we're gonna look back, you did what? Nothing, and your other folks didn't do anything, that's kind of sad. I absolutely wanna see drones. I really do not want us to do just, it's another day or maybe a little bit of blip, because again, I think about looking back. That it, and we did nothing, or it was like, man, this is a big deal. And especially these times, I think it needs to be very big deal. I would like to find a way to do both a parade early, a morning parade before it gets hot, and drones at night. It gives us time to drum up community support. It gives us time to bring in the chamber. It gives us time to bring in, private sector donations. We've got some time we can do something. And if we have to cancel, that would make me sick, but I'd like to set expectations that we're gonna do something to bring together, then go the opposite way, not have anything, and then people want to do something at the last minute and we're unprepared. I just think that's worse.
Okay. Thank you. Evelyn, do you have?
Oh, and you had the third question. I about steering committee and
No,
stuff like.
no, we're just doing one question at a
Oh,
time.
oh, okay.
To keep it simple.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Yeah, so I hear you saying you prefer to do a parade and an evening.
a parade in the morning before it gets blistering hot.
Yep.
And the thing at night,
Thank you.
drones.
Evelyn, what are your thoughts on, do you want to see just an evening event? Or would you like us to pursue a parade or a daytime event and an evening event?
Well, for the 250th birthday, we had it was in May, I believe, April or May, I think it was May. And we had the parade on a Sunday afternoon. I think if you have it at night, you're gonna have competition with other towns having fireworks and stuff like that, and they're gonna go to Raleigh or to Durham, or whoever had the Durham or whomever. And Chapel Hill, and I don't know.
The drones being unique, we'll actually have something unusual done.
Well, if you have something unusual, yeah, but if you have people like fireworks, and we cannot have fireworks. So, I don't know, I'm trying to compare it to what we had for the 250th, and only thing I can think of was the parade, and we had a bunch of other things along with it, but for once in my life, I don't remember all that we had, but it lasted. But we involved everybody, and then we didn't have the tourism board, so to speak. So I don't know, you could have something on the courthouse steps, but then you got people who have to come and stand where you gonna have it if you have it inside. Are you gonna have something outside? That type thing is to me is questionable, because I don't believe we had anything at night. Except the meetings, we had a lot of meetings. And I unfortunately don't have the minutes for that. And if it goes down, Bristol had it, well, she had things pretty much. I think things were sort of different. It was not that long ago, actually, I don't suppose, but things were different. And it's, if think about in a police protection,
Right.
that consider that, and I don't know, cannot have fireworks. I don't know about a parade in the morning. Are you gonna have people dressed? We had a thing, Kathleen.
Well, there's gonna be other events in town, like the museum and the Alliance has gotten grants and stuff, so there's gonna be things around town.
Yeah, that's true, but the parade we had was just basically. We had something for the clock. For one thing, and that was a big thing. And then we had the parade, people dressed in costume of William Churton. It was based around William Churton. The mayors rode in 3 separate cars because they didn't get along. That was interesting. About former mayors and here, I was trying to think what else. I'll have to think, I thought about it and I can't. I know Frank Sheffield was living and I saw something today on the legacy book where he had died. They wanted you to comment, but he was one of the ones, in fact. It's a shame to say, but I know of 4 mayors have died, 5 mayors have died out of the bunch. So stay healthy.
I like the sound of that.
Either that or you're saying.
I'll have to think as I hear what Matt says.
Thank you, Evelyn. Matt, what are your thoughts?
So are we still doing one question at a
Just
time?
one question at a time. Keep it
Um,
simple.
preferably, between daytime and nighttime. I think daytime is hot, as this week is demonstrating this time of year. But then also I think there's 2 other events that do pull from Hillsborough pretty heavily, maybe one more so than the other, which would be, Caldwell has their 4th of July, little parade through downtown, so they don't have it downtown, it's unincorporated, but I know a lot of people like to go out to that. And then, River Festival being that day as well, that to not compete with those, two things. Nighttime would seem to be better.
Thank you. So I think I'm in favor of an evening thing. What I would like to see would be a picnic and then a drone show with some musical, selections and speakers and that kind of thing. I think doing something in addition in the day would be hard and hot. But there might be other daytime activities that other groups in town might also be planning. So as part of your work to kind of, thank you, to figure all this out would be to see, is anybody else going to do anything during the day? They may not know, maybe too early for them to know for sure, but there might be other events that we could support or incorporate in some way that might be on during the day.
So one of the things I think was raised during the last session was this concept of a pedestrian parade as something that would be, somewhat easier logistically to manage around the courthouse, off Churton Street. Something like that could probably be done like, dusk, early evening before it gets too dark out. So if that's something that, sort of checks those boxes, it could be incorporated with, a community picnic,
Absolutely.
something like that.
So the Arts Council has a lot of experience hurting a lot of people
Now,
on a particular path and then ending up at a destination.
And that would be a lovely
Learning example.
precursor before drone shows have that, and if people want to dress up, great. If they don't, great. And yeah, absolutely picnicking, BYOB, bring your lunchies, you have kids, the music and. So,
The pedestrian parade, I like the sound.
I think Evelyn's got something.
Evelyn.
Like I asked Kathleen, where do you want to have the parade? Where do you want to have the picnic?
Oh, I mean, it's beside the, in, River Park is, there's open space there.
And then if we got it back to the old courthouse, would we have to get permission from the county?
Yeah,
yeah, for River Park or the courthouse, we would, and that's another reason why,
That-
start
that
planning
seems
now.
To be the place people seem to like, of course, like to go along the river too, but I don't want somebody to fall on the river and drown at night. Or hit one here this weekend.
another option is, depending on how many people are interested in, is using either Gold or Kate's Park, because Kate's Creek Park is options because there's open space. Again, it depends on how hot, but especially for a drone show, you want that open space. And those two, you've got sky and you've got space for people to picnic. And there's ways to do a walk there. They're different flavors, but still very doable. It'd be kind of fun either way.
Our challenge with either of those is gonna be parking. We have to get creative. But worth looking into.
And maybe it's I'm thinking out loud, is maybe Durham Tech is a place to park, but then that would be a natural pedestrian parade to Kate's Creek Park.
Okay, so that, I guess that's in scope to kind of analyze the different options.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
vice
that's,
versa with Gold Park and,
that's helpful. Sounds like there's consensus on an evening event with drone show, so that'll be, kind of step one is trying to get on somebody's calendar and get that booked.
Maybe a low-key people parade leading to the.
Yeah, I didn't wanna call it People's Parade. I didn't want it to be two car row, but that's, sort of what.
Is that
I'm
what they
envisioning.
Okay, next question you asked was about steering committee. Matt, what are your thoughts on? Have a good about that.
I think for the steering committee would be good to have, just generalized coordination. I anticipate other organizations they're planning to or in the midst of planning stuff, so I think at least just to get on the same page, and then also I think for amplification purposes, everyone knowing who has events, when, I assume, or whether it's the visitor center, or I would assume the town, having like an official schedule of things and whatnot. That would be really advantageous. And I don't think necessarily the planning of like a drone show and a picnic or whatever, that necessarily would need to be done by a steering committee. And unless folks would like to, but I think just general coordination of all the events around town. would be helpful.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I agree, that it'd be great to have input, and the existing 250th group is a great place to start. I don't feel that we need to appoint officially people to this committee. But I would encourage all board members to be as involved as you want to be in that. When time permits and things like that. And I would definitely think, well, I'll save that for the next question. Okay, Kathleen?
I agree, and one of the things I was thinking is to, as far as helping word around, and you were talking about the town, having a calendar event schedule, whatever, but at City Vision, there is a vendor that does communications, and it's free to the municipality. I have that information to share with our, with you and JC and our PIO department. But they do a lovely job. It's good, good quality. It's not cheesy paper. It's good quality where people want to actually have tangibles, as well as being able to post and things like that. I still do have that information. Great, it just would be a great resource. That's one of the things that Lewisburg does really well, is having that town calendar that we struggle with, but they're able to do in their community, and it's available, where people can pick up when they're around town during their walking, as well as online.
So I'm sorry, are you suggesting this is a one-off for this celebration, or are you talking about the town's calendaring system in general?
I'm saying here's an option which could be either. In other words, I'm thinking, what spurs me is this event, but it could be a pilot, because it could, if it ends up working well, who knows, it may have legs, it may not. But I really like the idea of us having an event calendar, be able to share, and then that got me thinking, well, how could we do this in a way that is there a way we can use, where we don't burden staff? Oh, here's this that actually is low, no cost. Oh, maybe this is something that we can help.
Okay, could you share that with staff? I'm
Yeah, like
sure.
I said, I would share that with
Okay,
Matt and.
Thank you.
and our-
And
yeah.
the visitor center operates the calendar, and the chamber wants to do a calendar.
Everybody wants to do a calendar.
Yeah, so.
And it's,
Okay.
and yet we end up, still nobody knows what's going on.
I follow the visitor center calendar, that's how I know what's going on.
I follow it all, but it's still very challenging. For people who want two moves, one place to go, you can't do one place.
Evelyn?
I don't know, it's. You could have you could have it like we do in the summertime, when we have have street things when the police used to go, the different areas. And you could have something on each street, maybe,
Like the National Night Out?
yeah,
Yeah.
you could have something like that, and then people could gather. For parade, or else watch a parade from somebody's street. I know. That people who love to have things in their yard. Who aren't far from Church Street. It's all sorts of things. You don't want people to have to. you don't want to rely on just one group of people. You want anybody who wants to come and let them know. And I think just can't remember how much we advertised, but we advertised a lot. And it wasn't expensive advertising, but we didn't have a lot of money. So somehow make the word where you can put a poster and you're welcome to put one of mine. When doing, I mean, there are a lot of people who do, and you don't want too many posters because people won't read them.
Right.
So if it's, but I think we had some woman from Chapel Hill. And you might know her, you should know her, maybe who worked with at the time with the chamber or somebody. Not chamber, the group that you were with
Visitors?
in the morning, who did all this she did all the news. I can't remember her name. She was really good at writing stuff and it was she spread all over, spread it where it needed to go. Well, for basically countywide, either one of you.
Talking about Lori Policelli, and they like the orange.
No, not her, her. But this woman did nothing but that type thing. She wasn't in charge. She wasn't the number one person in the group, but she was very good at advertising. I wish I had my notes on then, but it's been a while back.
So sounds like general support for a steering committee, not necessarily that the board wants to form their own, but try to find a way to plug into the existing group.
Yes. Okay, last question is involvement with the tourism board and tourism development. Tori.
Well, I mean, aren't they already involved with this? I thought they were already involved with some of these activities. Matt, is my understanding wrong?
I think they are involved in some of the activities.
Oh, I've seen you, I know, I don't think you are.
And so I guess the genesis of my question was really dependent on how you want to structure a steering committee. So there are events that are being funded by the tourism sources. And so I guess it was more of if you're forming a steering committee, do you want to have representation from those groups
Oh,
as
absolutely.
well?
I mean, ideally, I would love for them to lead, to take the lead, because I think this could be a nice little engine for tourism.
Can I offer a different perspective?
Absolutely.
I would want them to be involved, but I think the town needs to own the event and be in charge of it, because it's not for tourism. This is for celebration.
No, it's celebration, but
It's a giant tourism angle to it. I get that, but I don't want to put the tail wagging the dog or the before the horse. But I would say, man, it would make sense that, through Shannon, and Megan, figure out how to properly get them involved, because they might see some things they would like to fund, or they might be aware of potential events that need funding that would be in line with what we're trying to do. So that just makes sense.
Oh, I had another question here as we were talking, something that came out, I think we might answer it, or, I know what it was. So, this is early on, but just wanted to get feedback from you all while we're here. When we did the Centennial event in Carborough, so one of the big things, the big challenges was a keepsake. And so, we already talked about banners and things like that and sponsorships. But don't need feedback now, but something for y'all to start thinking about, like, do we want to encourage somebody else to produce a keepsake, a challenge coin, something like that? For, A250 in Hillsborough. So just, something to think about, put out there. I still have my Carborough Centennial mug, displayed on my shelf. And my sticker from Deland's 125th anniversary when we were there.
Yeah, I actually at Rural Hall, for their big celebration, I walked away with a mug, 4 t-shirts. They were gifts of mug, t-shirts, stickers, and everything. But the town did the t-shirts, although I think they're stopping now. But the other stuff was all through their tourism. So again, I thought that might be something where one of our community partners.
Yeah, we don't necessarily need to produce it or sell it or anything like that, but if there's a particular item of interest that the board wants to encourage.
I mean, to me, I like challenge coins. I'm not really icky. I wouldn't want something super cheesy. Not overboard expensive, but something that you actually would want to keep.
Would this be, yeah, something that the town would purchase in bulk to be distributed to anybody who attends? Or would it be like an
So-
online store where we can go purchase?
So it could be a fundraiser, it could be an attendance gift, so I've seen them both ways.
I like the fundraise.
Yep, it could be something that one of the community partners uses as a fundraiser for their event. And it may involve licensing of the logo, something like that. So mostly just, is that something that is of interest? Figure out how to move it forward.
I mean, I think there'd be a few that we could give away, the town would give away as, hold back or whatever as special gifts, but essentially fundraising.
And we get selected a cause. Help promote it.
We can always ask the attorney and ask the town manager what they would like to see. After all, you've lived here almost 100 years there, so, you can tell us what you think.
I learned, early in my local government career, I learned that it's, best for me to not participate in discussions when it comes to,
Well, this is-
festivals, and that was one of my earlier assignments was to put on a big thing in historical Georgetown, so, so I focus on helping deliver what the board wants to say, but thank you very much for asking.
Well, what do you think?
I just want there to be a Dunkin' booth with Eric in it.
Well, tricky.
If it's hot enough, it'll be,
Yeah,
it's sign me up.
I'll put it in there.
That's not a bad idea.
Get you a tri-corner hat. Hey, Matt, is that?
That
Answer all
answers
your
my
questions,
questions,
Sean?
gives me enough to get started. If there's anything else, that you all think of, or, becomes an important thing that we need to, integrate into our planning, let us know. We'll schedule some progress reports, once we get a vendor booked or, the steering committee formed, we'll let you all know, just to kind of keep this visible for folks on our agenda. But thank you all for your input.
Oh, but there's one other thing in the back of my father's history book, there's a program. And this is when Clarence Jones, who had bought Western Auto and Knox Zeppelin and all of those, well, Knox Zeppelin was small, and there's a picture of them in a covered wagon, and I don't remember that there was a play. And I can look at it again and see the name, but we couldn't do a play, but I mean, that was something that it was the county thing. It must have been the 200th, would it been the 200th anniversary, because she has died and she was probably in her 80s, so her father's been dead, so I don't know, I can let you know that. The idea that what it was, and just see what the programs, of course, we can't do anything like that, but.
I think the museum may be doing this, because Courtney does several of these plays,
Well, she made, but this was something they had on the football field back of the high school, the Whitted children on the football field. I don't remember going, but I remember it's in the back of his history. So it's been quite a while, but I can share that with.
Yeah, look forward to seeing it.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, and next up, Commissioner Hughes is going to discuss and share a resolution reaffirming the town of Hillsborough's commitment to democratic self-government.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of folks out in the community who naturally are feeling a particular way about state of affairs. And I know in prior years, I know 2016 and 2020, when folks were feeling uncertain, we did an open letter And with America 250 rolling around with, you know, a lot of activism that we're seeing out in the community, a lot of concern in the community, it felt good it felt good to me at least, that we might go on the record and just say that, you know, we believe in constitutional government. We have a big claim to it here in Hillsborough, in terms of democracy and freedom. I know those sound like cliches, but, you know, Hillsborough also has had a really impactful history, as, you know, we were just talking about, with America 250. So, you know, I submitted it. I know we don't pass resolutions on issues not directly affecting town very often, but, even in, asking for it to be on the action agenda rather than the consent agenda, it also kind of felt like it could be more impactful to, you know, proactively kind of pass a resolution rather than on the consent agenda where it's just more passive. So,
Well, you know, as a town, we're doing, can't speak, commemoration of the Third Provincial Congress, which is when we declined to ratify because it did not have the Bill of Rights. I would like to have seen that coincide with that, our celebration of the Third Provincial Congress, which is in September. Because to me, that double reaffirms that we are supportive of democratic constitutional government and individual rights for all.
And for a friendly suggestion.
Yeah.
To that sounds like a very good additional standalone resolution, because you're right, that is one of the monumental things in not only Hillsborough history, but American history.
Absolutely.
And you can take one.
I said, I'm glad to, I'm glad to do this. I do want to make sure, I don't want us to have a habit of doing things that we don't have impact, but given this situation, I think it's important to reaffirm we value true representative democracy. That your vote counts, your voice is heard, and that equal protection of all.
And there's one thing I just thought of, you had Governor Burke. Governor Burke, I thought was a Tory, but I'm not sure, but there's a road named Burke Road, and he lived out, 57? And, but I think he was a Tory.
nope.
What's the, but now whether he was or he wasn't, he was governor at that time, before the overthrow, I think. But I need to go back and look. Shoot. Well, you got William Hooper, there's nothing, is there anything, there may be something in Eric's area named, Hooper, is that Hooper Circle or Hooper Road?
Yeah, Hooper Court.
Hooper Court, so
Yeah,
that's
it's right off the
wasn't
county
in the
seat.
historic district, so William Churton was before William Hooper, so he wouldn't have known William Hooper. So Churton named all the streets, so he couldn't name one after Virginia, his wife, and he one after Margaret
Wake.
Margaret Ray, Margaret somebody, Margaret, and then everybody's name sort of up after British, he named them all after the British. English, not here, as we all know, King Street, Church Street. He got his name on the street, and his house was where the new courthouse was. Did you know that? It's too bad that Tom Magnuson didn't get to go dig up under there before it was covered. Would have found some artifacts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'll try, why don't we consider the people, well, you have, well, yeah, you did mention William Church. William Churton should be somewhere, but he wasn't in the beginning. Well, yeah, he was in the beginning. He platted the town. But you did a good job with that.
Thank you, and we're both correct, there was a second Governor Burke, and I mentioned the first Governor Burke, so. I'll send the correction to the mayor, to Sarah, just to update that.
Well, it makes no difference. I think William Hooper should be put someplace, even though his tooth may be the only thing here. He lived here and he lived across the street, and that was General Nash. He lived across the street from me.
Yeah.
I remember it like it was yesterday. So you never know.
And did you know that
Stop
in
it.
in the
But we
early,
need to go through the old cemetery too. But we could have tours to the old, well, they have them as it is, but we could have tours to the old cemetery. There are all sorts of history, of historical things, hysterical things that went on back yonder that we could think about. What do you think? You think we should go to the cemetery and look at all the people that were important, like Governor Graham and all of them?
I'm gonna use Eric's answer. We'll support whatever the board decides.
Well, I mean, no, we don't have one. There are a lot of them, there are more than that. And John Berry has built all the beautiful houses. Courthouses. And churches. I think I'll shut up then.
so I just want to say that we really do live in strange times that we even need to remember that we all sign an oath of fidelity to the Constitution of the United States and North Carolina, and that we're somehow back here having to reaffirm that publicly because there's so much the federal level, some of the state level of ignoring the Constitution. So it is good to be mindful of the Constitution and why we have that, why we swear an oath to that. We've all sworn that oath. I've sworn the oath 5 times, twice in the military and 3 times as an elected official. And so it's just something that I'm mindful of all the time. Back in February, when I addressed the board about my personal feelings about what was going on, one of the things I said was that your town board, speaking to the audience, that we're here to serve you with fidelity to the constitutions of the United States, North Carolina. We're gonna keep doing that. Whatever happens anywhere else, this is what we're gonna keep doing. So I support, I don't get to vote on the resolution, but if the board approves it, I will sign it, of course. But I appreciate you bringing it to us.
Well, I would move adoption of the resolution with the change of switching out Governor Edmund Burke for Governor Samuel Burke from the email, or the revised resolutions already in your email, Sarah and Mayor Bell. That's my motion.
I second.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kathleen. Any more discussion? All in favor?
I
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
It's the one that they supposedly pulled out of the window because of the taxes.
Oh,
It's Fanning.
Yeah, but
Fanning.
and
Fanning.
Ed Benning,
Oh, yeah, Edward Fanning.
who apparently is a national hero in Canada.
Well, he was tarred, supposedly the one version was he was tarred and feathered and pulled out of his upstairs window and he was covered with tar and feathers. Bet you didn't know that.
I just know he's the best friends with Governor Triumph.
Yep, and they were, and that was connected with the questionable demise of the governor of New York. Who it's always been suspected that, there's a reason why Tryon got to be governor of New York. Scotty Washington tells a great story about that.
Let me leave you with one other historical tidbit on that before we move on. And that is, did you know that in the early days of this government, before there was a formal board like this, a variety of people served in the role of just kind of the mayor and the board combined. Any commissioner could act as with that authority, but it includes Edmund Fanning, Francis Nash, William Hooper, and James Hubbard, among many others. So these are the footsteps that you follow.
That's really cool.
And William Church.
There's a lot about the whole, the guy, where he lived where Airman, not Airman, he lived. No, he lived over. Oh, shoot. Poplar Ridge, what is the
You're
one,
talking about,
That was Hall.
the one up on the mount, up on the hill where the houses are moved down to here, now I can't think.
You're thinking of Poplar Hill.
Well, whatever
That
it
was James
was,
Holland.
was he, see,
Upper Hill was James Hall.
That's what I'm saying.
it was, he had a big farm, it was Carr, it was a Carr, his last name was
Oh, you're talking
Carr.
about Julian Carr in Tuscarora, that area?
The Carr guy, he had this beautiful farm. And he was too much into. Carrboro wanted to change their name, all of that, but he had a pig farm that had pickups and all sorts of animals, and my father. I'm gonna take it one more time. He rode on, his father had polio or something, so my grandfather took them on horse and buggy over to see that farm, and they had all sorts of, unusual animals. It was a really big, it was really nice. And had all sorts of animals and things, and so people went over there on Sundays to get out of town. By carriages or whatever they had. I'm sure my grandfather didn't have a carriage, but mine had anyway, they went over there. So that was, of course, that was after the Revolutionary War, but that's something nobody thinks about. They only think about the bad things about him. But Julius Carr gave my aunts lived out at Cedar Grove. They had the house burned. They had never had, and so their dolls were burned. He took them dolls. They were the only toys they had because the house and everything was burned. So there was something good, there's something good to say about everybody, whether you liked what he did or not. I thought that was, I always have thought she said that he came and brought them dolls, and I thought they had nothing, so.
Do you still have the dolls in your family?
I mean, that was when they were little.
Yeah, I just didn't know if y'all kept it.
Well, I don't know if it had been 100 and something years ago,
I just didn't know if they got passed down. and
No,
passed-
I don't have any, I don't think she probably had many dolls, I don't know, I've got some things, but, no. If I did, I'd bring it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Thank you, Evelyn. And I'm glad that you all are so interested in history, as Emily said. Thank you. Committee updates and reports. Evelyn, do you have something?
You want me to consider talking about the fire department?
Only as
No,
you
this
see.
is longer than, this could be all night, because I've discussed it with the assistant manager back there.
Can you give us a summary?
Well, it lasted a long time, about 3 or 4 hours, it seemed. They had an election of one of the Mr. Griffins there were 2 Mr. Griffins, one retired. So he wasn't up for reelection. The last election, as you recall, 2 of the board members were voted off. 3 of them were voted off. And so the 2 of them who were voted off got voted back on. It was a very strange meeting, but it's done by secret ballot. So very few people came. So we had a meeting and nobody said anything much except the chief. And the chief was mad at the town because he didn't get the budget passed. And I don't know what he wanted out of the budget. He looked at me and said, well, what about the budget? And I said, the budget. He said, we didn't get what we asked for. And I said, I think you got salaries and things. You got things you asked for, except for 3 big things, which the town you would get eventually, but you can't get now. And I wanted to say, you got a new fire station out yonder, why don't you use it? And they only keep 2 people out there. Time, they discussed the budget, I gave him, a description of how he wants his employees to act, and, discuss moving money around. I guess that's it. It was not a pleasant meeting. It was nothing but argument. And he was mad at the world. I have never seen him, the chief, that angry at the others just didn't say anything. So he ruled for Bruce. And I gave my report and he said, well, what about the budget? I said, well, you got 2 fire trucks and a new station. But what he said, which made me mad, was that he would have to stay in that old building that needed all this repair until we got them a new station. And that building is in pretty good shape. It looks good to me. They keep it clean. And I think the fire station is considering we've got the new one and they want to get rid of one out to the north of town, and they have Walker Road. They're okay.
Thank you.
And I gave him a copy of the budget. I gave the assistant manager the financial report.
Okay, thank you, Ellen.
Asked for it.
I did, thank you. Yeah.
Well, so, wanted to share a little bit of the National Association of Regional Councils meeting that I was at. I did not know I was gonna be nominated to serve, the next term, but I was, and I will be. In a lot of interesting things, Seattle, they have grown, from 500,000 to, like over 1.5 million, but their footprint has only grown by 1/10 of a mile. All of that growth has been infill. That I thought was fascinating, and what they've done is they are operating under the state of Washington Growth Management, which does position counties as regional organization, and it directs growth into urban areas to protect rural areas. Only 30% of the residents actually live in rural, the rest are in urban. Now, what's interesting is to wherever there's public transit, they require 80% of that land to be affordable housing for 80% AMI. So that the transit oriented design, and we visited some of the communities where that is in place, and it's just amazing what they've been doing. We also saw we were seeing autonomous transit networks, which are being piloted in Atlanta, and San Francisco, and one other, and I can't remember. And what's different about this, instead of having wild west of autonomous vehicles just running on streets at risk, they actually do have, it's a complete system, so it's separate roadway and the vehicles, but it's narrow, and it was really wicked cool. Kind of curious to see how that plays out in some of those areas. I attended mostly the housing pieces. I did attend one of the things I'm talking about FEMA. It was a little disconcerting because the FEMA rep was just reinforcing that essentially, and this was the day before 45, 47, whatever Agent Orange is, said that FEMA was going to be disbanded after the hurricane surge, but re-emphasized that unless it's national significance undefined, of which Helene was not, it's all on the states and local governments. They did admit that local governments are not prepared. They also pushed that you're supposed to use websites. Not sure what you're supposed to do when you have no power, no internet. The other thing where they were pushing to pre-qualify survivors, because only only a percentage of survivors will be eligible for help. It was very disconcerting. It was a video, so our questions, which were pointed, were not, where we have to be fielded afterwards. We also, heard from DOT, this fellow was from Elon. And it just reinforced that the administration pushing, they wanna build their way out of traffic, and shovel-ready roads. Bike ped, not so much. It was, again, very, very disconcerting. We saw a lot of, projects from around the region, because what happens at this particular conference, there's a competition. I'm really excited about one of the projects bringing back to our region is a regional housing dashboard that came out of Lehigh Valley. This is, it adds a zoning analysis tool to compare how much housing is possible compared to what exists today, what is, permissible under, the zoning. That's something we learned that it was $250,000 to put together. That's something that we're gonna demo to our housing committee in August when we hold that. Also, saw a lot of flex rides, the project that came out of Milwaukee. A really cool thing that they were doing to track trails was GoPro and a bike. That was done in Iowa, and they hired volunteers, essentially were college students, which loved it. That was the best internship on the planet, where they got to just go ride the trails. But they were seeing in real time exactly where there were issues, that they were able to report back the coordinates as they were riding that. They did talk about notice of future funding opportunities on transportations for a different aspect. I do have Safe Streets, June 26th deadline, which is like tomorrow. The FTA bus facilities, federal rail, FAA. There's some bridge investment and competitive highway bridge programs coming. A lot of plans that brought together planning, transportation. And then also there was a really good on AI, Gov AI. And again, what's in reality, North Carolina, we were well above what was happening. Because of the coastal plain cog. In fact, I'll be giving away copies of policies for a lot of folks. Those were the notes that I had. And a regional data center. One of the things that was really exciting. Right now we have transportation data, but it's housed in NC State. We don't, as a region, we don't own it. We can't, we are dependent on that. All these other, and I said, we saw 7, 8 different projects. It's in the commission, which is, and these commissions, MPOs and the COGS are together. So it's a lot more effective and efficient than what we have. But anyhow, I've got information if anyone's interested, a little bit more on this sessions, but that was one of the very best conferences I've been to. And I love City Vision. I find them very useful, and this was even more, my head was exploded with so much information, than even City Vision. So, I'm looking forward to the next one. Is our next board retreat will be in October. So that will, see what I learned then. So that's what I've got right now.
Okay, thank you. That sounds exciting. Congratulations on continued service.
Thank you. I'm really excited that I really want to see the housing dashboard for the region, which builds on what we were working on anyway, was to feed into the comprehensive regional plan, the 2050. So that will really be helpful to step back and look at housing from that regional perspective.
Thank you. I have just two updates. Of course, went to the Almond Village groundbreaking on June 12th. That was a great event. I'm very excited about that going forward. Commissioner Hughes was there as well. And then on the 17th, went to the Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization, TPO. Just for your general information, there are usually 20 to 30 items on the agenda for that meeting, and some of them are exceedingly deep and detailed and technical. So the highlights, whenever there's anything relating to Hillsborough specifically, that always piques my interest, and I will convey that to you. But this meeting, some of the highlights are, there was we adopted the Transportation Improvement Plan Amendment number 8. There was nothing Hillsborough specific. It was added to the tip, so nothing to report there for us. We released a draft tip for public comment. We released the final project list for Spot 8. And we released an amendment to the, gosh, what document is that? It was an amendment regarding a Durham specific issue. And we had to re-release that for more public comment because there was some question about the way to do it, a road in one of the projects. So that was released for public comment. And there were various informational reports and always reports from there are 3 NCDOT divisions that cross boundaries with the TPO. So we get reports from there. That's all I have.
I have one other thing I wanted to share. I'll be real quick because it may be of interest to Chief, but one of the winning projects was local crime lab. And this the commissioner cog, it's less than 250,000, so it's a small region. So in addition to state labs, they have their local regional crime lab that they've been able to process. Unbelievable, they've got rapid DNA. And it is the person he was a detective for 25, 30 years. He also spearheads teaching force agencies how to work with domestic violence victims properly. So you actually and how to use the lethality, because the lethality gives you your PC. But anyhow, as it turns out, his wife's family lives near Dad. So I'll be meeting and getting more information, but I would like to connect you to.
I was gonna say, if you could share that with me, that would be great.
Yes.
I'd like to follow up on that.
But that's what they were able to do. Again, this was regional, but at a small scale, but that's something that I know that, states that's an issue all over. It might be, it may not be Central Pines. I don't know. It's too early, but anyhow, wanted to share that.
Thank you. Matt.
So last week we had the Visitors Bureau, meeting, which was great. We gave a nodding of heads, to engage a consultant, based out of Raleigh, I believe it is, but has national experience on developing countywide tourism strategy, for the next 3 years. So that's really exciting. And then we heard feedback about the Turkey, Mexico, soccer game that happened a few weeks ago in Chapel Hill and how successful that was. And there's been some good press about it, particularly impact on local businesses, which was really awesome. But then also the fact that the Mexican national team has such a base of fans in the Triangle was really good. But then also the Turkish team went and did some community events as well. There's a Turkish community center or cultural center in Chapel Hill, and they were very gracious in participating in some outreach around the community. Uproar is coming back. Hillsborough will have some of those public sculptures August 1st through 23rd. So, Stephanie Trudlett has to save the day again. We'll be very grateful. Also attended a community pride event in Carborough, 4 Juneteenth events at Mount Zion, Burwell. Carborough was the host of the Chapel Hill Carborough Juneteenth event, and then also NC Central had one, and I went specifically about the panel discussion on AI that they had. El Centro had their gala on Saturday, which I attended. Yesterday, Anna Richards is moving from Orange County to Fayetteville, Arkansas, Fayetteville, Georgia. And so a few of us got together and said goodbye. Where she mentioned NPO and Habitat. Also met with, along with Commissioner Dara, the parking study consultants that are doing our parking study, and gave them kind of our viewpoints of the parking situation in Hillsborough, and just how location can be improved and that sort of thing. So that was awesome. Went to the regulator commemoration. That was also on Juneteenth this past Thursday. Always good to hear Scott Washington talk about the regulator movement here in Orange County, and a significant number of descendants were there. I think there was probably about 2 to 3 dozen folks.
Yeah.
And only maybe a half dozen of us weren't descendants. So it was really cool, and folks being really proud of their heritage. And then also attended a joint reception with the North Carolina Black Elected Municipals Official Demo, which is part of the league, and then also the Legislative Black Caucus. And great to hear from colleagues across the state and where they are in their budgets. Some were like us, and they were done. Some were done back in April, which I can't imagine being done with a budget bigger than ours. But Leland, North Carolina, passed their budget in April. But then also, hearing people's concerns about various bills on local authority and that sort of thing. So it was good to see a really good showing of legislators conveniently on Juneteenth, as well as municipal folks across the state.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, Evelyn?
I would like to thank all the policemen for what they did in rescuing the 30-year-old man. He was lost.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I think that they did a wonderful job, and all the city. And he could have gone up on the mountain and got lost on one of the trails. He could have jumped in the river and drowned. Could have done anything, and I think they should be commended, all of them, for what they did.
We'll make that happen. Thank you.
I think we have a good police department.
Okay, anything else for the good of the board?
Well, I will say Google Fiber. I finally have Google Fiber. I will say the contractors. Yes, they cut my existing internet lines.
That's one way to generate business.
Well, when you trench, coax is 8 to 12 inch and fiber is 12 to 24 inches. I think it's 18 inches, 80 hunts below. When you trench, one can tell normally tree roots and coax before you lay fiber, but they didn't pay attention. However, the individual who lives in Hillsborough, who is doing the installation, his name is Steve Ford. It was wonderful. So the fellows, actual Google Fiber folks that are doing the installations, primo. And it's a real Hillsborough resident. So kudos to him. I'll be doing my survey too.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kathleen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good night.